Hello YouTube. I know a lot of you are wondering exactly how well Furina works with Wanderer, and how you should build Wanderer and his teams with her, so I am here to provide you with that information. Please also be sure to check out my written Wanderer guide. It is very detailed and it is updated to Furina. So firstly, how good is Furina with Wanderer? Short answer, absolutely incredible. In Wanderer teams, he really wants to have either a buffer, sub-DPS, or shielder as the last flex slot in his teams. Furina sort of fills all three. She's both an excellent buffer and sub-DPS. Obviously, she's not a shielder, but she does allow Wanderer to get his Hydro A1, which gives him 20 extra Skydweller points and allows him more leeway to go without a shielder, because you can use the extra Skydweller points to either fly higher and avoid getting hit from most enemies' attacks, or let you fit in an extra dodge without a far up and not lose much field time if you do. With Furina filling all three of these roles at the same time, it's only natural that she is a massive upgrade to Wanderer's teams. Even the lowest end of Wanderer Furina teams that I've calculated is doing a bit higher than the high end of his teams before Furina. So, what's the team? The core is, of course, Wanderer, C6 Faruzan, and Furina. The fourth slot will be a healer, and I recommend picking between Bennett, Jean, Mika, and Charlotte. Let's go through the pros and cons of each. Bennett is the highest DPS option of them all. There is a very common misconception that Bennett does not work well with Furina because he only heals one character and only heals if they are below 70%. But as I explained in my Risley video, while this does make Bennett get less fanfare than team-wide healers, it doesn't really matter because his buffing is large enough to compensate for that. After casting Bennett's burst, you can wait for about half a second before swapping off of him, and he will heal himself. And then you can also use Faruzan inside of Bennett's burst, and if need be, and she'll get healed. And then while Wanderer is on the field, he should get healed by Bennett at least 2 times. And if your Bennett is built for healing, you should trigger overflow healing a few times as well. Wanderer also loses little if any Bennett uptime by rotating like this. Now it is important to keep in mind that your supports will constantly be at low HP, which can allow them to get killed very easily while rotating. Something you can try if you are worried about Bennett not healing enough is you can use him on 4-piece maidens instead of Noblesse. You would lose out on Noblesse's 20% attack buff, but this could theoretically compensate for the attack lost in Noblesse, with the fanfare gained with the larger heals and getting overflow on mostly every heal. Based on my math, this should theoretically only be about 3% behind Noblesse, but if any of you guys try it out, let me know how it feels compared to Noblesse. I think the slight loss in damage is likely going to be worth the increase in comfort from the bigger heals. Also, if you need to get Furina healed, you can swap to her for a brief second during Bennett's burst as well. This will cause you to lose out on a second of Bennett buff uptime, but if you are going to finish the chamber in the same rotation anyway, it doesn't matter. And even if you don't, you can mitigate the amount of damage lost by the decreased Bennett uptime with the increase in fanfare and time above 50% HP. Also, like the Risley video, I'm showing footage in the worst case scenario, that being everyone starting at literally 50% HP. You will never actually be in this scenario, but I'm doing this just to show how exaggerated the claims about Bennett being bad with Furina are. The footage is all with a C0 Furina. I do have C2 Furina, but I haven't activated any of her constellations yet, because I knew if I did, there would be people claiming that the things I'm doing here are only working because of constellations. But yeah, Wanderer scales extremely well with attack, and Bennett gets him a massive attack buff and 30% attack from Pyro A1, so it makes sense that he's the highest damage healer option despite getting less fanfare. And he can even use Freedom Sworn here for even more buffing. The main downside of using him, aside from how easily your characters can get one-shot if you're not careful while rotating, is that you are restricted to being inside Bennett's burst radius, which gives you a lot less freedom to kite enemies and dodge their attacks, which is pretty important when playing shieldless Wanderer. Now, what about Jean? The thing with Jean is, she really needs to be C4. Pre-C4, she really isn't bringing anything to the table. She can use Freedom Sworn, but when comparing her to Bennett, this isn't an advantage since they can both use it anyway. At C4, her buffing is pretty nice, and she ends up approximately like 4% behind Bennett. Now, it is of course possible that in practice, Jean being able to instantly heal the entire team will work out better in practice than Bennett, but in theory, Bennett is stronger. Jean does also have the advantage of not restricting Wanderer to staying inside a limited radius like Bennett, so he can kite way easier with her. But at the same time, for her C4 resistance shred, enemies only get affected by that if they are in the radius of her burst. This can be a problem because in multi-wave, enemies can just spawn far away from her burst, and Jean's burst itself is also capable of knocking enemies out of it, so you have to keep that in mind. But nonetheless, overall she's a good option at C4. With Mika, he can work well because he provides a massive attack speed buff. And as mentioned, Wanderer has no hit lag, so this goes a long way on him. With how fast Wanderer will attack with Mika, he will get his A4 up more frequently, meaning more windows to dodge without losing any DPS. So this is very nice since Wanderer has no shield here. There's also no circle impact with Mika, so you can kite freely with him as well. Mika also has a very large team right heal and continuous healing for Wanderer over time, and Mika also requires basically no energy recharge at all, because with Rightful Reward R5, the Fontaine craftable polearm, he's going to be refunding 32 energy to himself every rotation. And if you have C4, he can get 15 more, so he's almost fully covering his energy without even catching any particles. And since Mika is Cryo, against enemies that can be frozen, you will get both Wanderer's Hydro and Cryo A1s. And this is actually where the downsides of using Mika comes from. A large part of his value is from that 20% crit rate Wanderer gets from Cryo, but against Barsis and other enemies that can't be frozen, you won't get this, and Mika's value will drop off hard. On top of that, Wanderer ascends with crit rate, and he wants to use the Meiwa Shusei Hunter set with Furina, so you are more than likely going to overcap on crit rate with him. But if you are getting both Hydro and Cryo, then Mika is only about 5% behind Bennett for DPS. Then lastly, with Charlotte, she also has a very large team right heal and is Cryo, allowing you to get both Hydro and Cryo A1. And unlike Mika, she actually has off-field Cryo application, so you will still get Cryo A1 with her even against Barsis. You just won't get Hydro. Because Charlotte has off-field AoE Cryo application, this also turns this into a freeze team with her. This is very nice since it can make playing without a shield a lot more comfortable. Charlotte is a Catalyst user, so she can buff with Thrilling Tales. However, this is where her downsides come in. She has massive energy requirements if you are using her without an energy recharge weapon. In order to burst every rotation on Charlotte with Thrilling Tales, you're basically going to have her at C4 for the 10 energy refund, and you're also more than likely going to have both Faruzan and Furina on Favonius. Although this isn't that big of a deal since Favonius is very good weapons for those two anyway. You will, however, likely need to ensure that you funnel the Favonius particles from Faruzan to Charlotte. In some rotations, you may also find that you need to use Charlotte's hold skill instead of tap for the extra particles. You can also just avoid the energy hassle altogether by just using Charlotte herself on Favonius instead. But this will result in doing about 5% less damage than Thrilling Tales, but the ease of use and comfort of it could be worth it. Also, like Mika, a lot of Charlotte's value does come from that Cryo A1 for the 20% crit rate that it gives to Wanderer, and you are more than likely going to overcap on crit rate and not actually get the full value of that. If you are able to use Thrilling Tales and Burst every rotation with Charlotte, then she results in about the same DPS as Mika, about 5% behind Bennett. And with Favonius, it's more like 10% behind. So, between the healer options, Bennett is theoretically the strongest, but the team-wide healers will more than likely be more comfortable to play, but it is entirely possible that they will do better than Bennett in practice. So, just pick whichever option you find is working out the best for you. Also, let's quickly go over Wanderer+Furina teams without Faruzan, for those of you that haven't got her C6 yet. I recommend using Yelan in place of Faruzan in this case. Wanderer loses out on a ton of damage without Faruzan, but you get Yelan's personal damage and higher damage on Furina now, thanks to needing less energy recharge and having Hydro Resonance. Wanderer's damage will still be pretty high here, since he is still getting buffed by Furina, your healer, and Yelan altogether. The healer options remain the same here: Bennett, Mika, Charlotte, and Jean. However, Jean gets a lot better because she's able to use 4-piece Viridescent, which is now actually an advantage that she has, since she'll be buffing both Furina and Yelan. So if you have her C4, she should definitely be the best option in this scenario, and can still be the best option even at C2 here. A funny thing with this that I want to mention is that if you aren't using Jean to hold 4-piece Viridescent, then using 4-piece Viridescent on Wanderer can actually be roughly equivalent to Meirashuse Hunter for team damage. He will be doing less damage, but it gets compensated by the extra damage Yelan and Furina will be doing. It will depend on how much investment your Wanderer has compared to your Yelan and Furina. Now, the way you build Wanderer in a Furina team changes a bit. Meirashuse Hunter becomes his best set, but at 10% ahead of DPC. Also, Attack Goblet is also viable if you aren't using Bennett. Usually about the same as a Nemo or slightly behind, but do not use an Attack Goblet with Bennett. It's a lot worse with him. And then with Wanderer's weapons, Tula is still his best weapon, with Cashflow and Tomb only about 1 to 2% behind. Cashflow, however, is likely to be considerably worse than this in practice, since it's really hard to avoid overcapping on crit rate with this. And if you were trying to use Cashflow alongside Charlotte or Mika with Cryo A1, then overcapping is literally impossible, because you're already overcapped with that even before accounting for substats. And then with Tomb, just make sure you are doing either into C or CA spam as your combo, since this weapon only buffs charged attacks. Skyward Atlas also surprisingly got better, about 7% behind Tula. I think this is because the attacks from Atlas get Furina's buff. Flowing Purity is also a really good free-to-play weapon with Furina. And the last important thing to note here with the weapons is that Lost Prayers is just not good with Furina. This is, as you can expect, because it's a 33 crit rate weapon, so you are going to massively overcap on crit rate with this. So overall, Wanderer got a massive increase from Furina. Previously, his team DPS ranged from like 71 to 75k on the high end, to now with Furina, I'm getting it around like 76 to 85k, although do take those numbers with a grain of salt. These are still early calcs. There could be a couple of things I overlooked that may be inflating or deflating them a bit. And one more really good thing Furina does for Wanderer is she improves his vertical scaling by a lot. Wanderer already had excellent vertical scaling by his own constellations, but he sort of hit a wall after hitting C6, since his best supports were 4 stars, so you couldn't improve him further with constellations on other 5 stars since he wasn't using any. But now, you can improve him further with Furina constellations, which are absolutely massive. And yeah, if you liked today's video, please be sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Please also don't forget to check out my written Wanderer guide. They put a lot of effort into that. Please also let me know what character I should cover with Furina next. Thanks.
Let the darkness take control.